Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Carlos Knows Real Estate. My name is Carlos and I hope you guys are having a phenomenal day today. So today we're going to talk about establishing credit, how to build credit, especially for those that don't have credit. If you do have credit, then we're also going to cover some tips on how to improve your credit score and make sure that your debt to income ratio is where it needs to be in case you want to apply for a loan. So let's get started. All right, so the first thing we want to talk about is what do you do if you don't have any credit, if you haven't established any credit yet? This is good information, especially if you're a younger person, maybe out of college or going into college, you're 18, you want to start building some credit, but it also applies to people later on in life. I mean, it's a good idea to have credit. I know especially in my culture, there are people that just like to pay cash for everything. And don't believe in credit cards. But when it comes time to maybe applying for a mortgage or, you want to buy a car and you don't have the cash to buy a car, you really do have to have credit established. So let's go over some of these steps to help you get started on establishing credit. So the first thing and probably the best thing that you can do is apply for a secure credit card. This is basically a prepaid card that you deposit money into, usually no more than $500 at a time. And then you just use that money. Like, you really need to be disciplined and use it basically for your gas usage or if you're buying groceries, things like that. And then when you run out of money, you can always recharge the card. But at least this gets reported to the credit bureau and it starts establishing some credit. Okay. Then maybe after 6 to 12 months, you can apply for a traditional credit card. Another option would be to get a store credit card, but you have to really be careful because these cards can be risky and get you into a lot of trouble. Typically, store cards tend to have fees close to 30% in some cases. And if you're the type of person that, you see a bunch of things that you want to get and you think, oh, I'll just pay it off on a monthly basis, be aware that 30% interest or high interest rates do tack on a lot of fees over time to that original balance that you were carrying. So be sure that you don't overspend or don't spend more than you can pay on a monthly basis. Ideally, you'd like to carry a zero balance at the end of the month or pay it off completely because this will help build your credit faster. If you're carrying a balance, make sure that you don't charge more than 49% of your available credit. And we'll talk about that a little later. Number 3, you also want to open up a checking account. You want to have money in the bank, especially when you're applying for new cards. They want to make sure that you have a checking account that you can draw from and pay your bills on a monthly basis. A couple other options that are probably a little more risky to family members, but again, if you're close with your family, they trust you. This is something that you can look into as well. You can ask a family member to be a co-signer for you on a credit card, but just be aware that if you default or you don't pay your credit card bills, then the family member is going to be responsible for that bill. Another thing that you can do is ask to become an authorized user. If your parents or other family members have credit cards, they can authorize you as a user and get your own card under their account. And this way you'll be able to charge things and build credit as well. Finally, if you don't have any credit and you're out on your own and you're paying rent on a monthly basis, there are rent reporting companies out there that do report your rental payments to the credit bureau. So if you have a good rental history, this is another option that you can look into in order to start building some credit. So once you establish credit history, we're going to go over a few tips on how to get that credit score higher. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is if you're carrying multiple credit card balances, you want to pay down the cards with the highest interest rates first and pay the minimum balance on the remaining cards. So if you have 3 cards and they each have $1,000 balance on them, one is charging you 20%, the other one is 15%, and then you have one in between at 17%. You want to pay as much as you can on a monthly basis to the highest rate card first. Let's say it's $25 and you have $50 of disposable income per month after paying all your bills. If the minimum payment is $25 on all your cards and you have an extra $50, send in $75 to that high interest rate card first. Okay. Once you get it down to zero, now you have $75 available to you that you can start pumping into the next highest credit card. So pay off the high interest rate cards first, get them down to zero. That excess money that you have, start pumping it into your next card and you'll pay it off a lot more quickly. Once a high interest rate card is paid off, pay as much as possible on the next card like we talked about. Now, if you have to carry a balance, like I mentioned earlier, make sure that you don't charge more than 49% of the available balance. You want to keep it under 50%. The reason being is that credit bureaus look at your spending, and if they see that you're charging more than 50% of the available balance, that's actually a red flag to them, okay? So the more credit cards you have available and you keep them under 50%, that shows that you have a lot more available credit and you're being fiscally responsible and you're not spending to those limits. Now, I'm not saying go get 20 credit cards, but if you have 2 or 3 and you're keeping, maybe you just use one, the one with the lowest interest rate, and you don't use the other ones, you keep those at a zero balance. This will actually help build your credit score over time. Number 4, focus on paying all of your credit card balances and only charge them what you can pay at a month's end. Use the lowest interest rate card first. Again, that's what we talked about earlier. So how do you continue to grow your credit score? Well, the most important thing that you can do is pay your bills on time, okay? There's certain things that the credit bureau looks at, and different things have different weights, okay? So the most important one, the one that has the most weight, is paying your bills on time. Get in the habit of sending credit card payments in a week before they're due. I mean, sometimes you get the balance, you forget, you toss it aside, maybe you pay your bills once a month, and that bill's come due in 2 days, and it's going to take 3 days for your payment to clear. That's a good way to wind up with a late payment. Also, like I said earlier, you want to keep your credit balances below 50%, but ideally, it's even better to keep it below 30%. If you have to charge things, keep those balances low and make sure that you can pay them off every month if possible. That's the best thing you can do. You don't want to close any credit lines that you don't use. Keep them open because, like I said earlier, the credit bureaus look at your overall available credit. And the more available credit that you have that you're not using, that just shows that you're responsible with money. And closing any credit cards that you're not using will actually reduce the available credit available to you. And, the credit bureaus look at that negatively. So, keep your credit lines open and just be disciplined enough not to use them. Maybe you keep them open and you cut the credit card so that you're not tempted. That's another thing that you can do if you feel that temptation is there and you're worried about, spending money that you shouldn't be spending. Okay, so there are different factors, like I mentioned earlier, that affect your credit score. So the first one, pay your bills on time. The credit bureaus weigh that so heavily. It's basically 35% of your total credit score is your payment history and to see if you pay your bills on time. 30% of your score is based on the amount of debt owed in your account. So again, that's why you want to keep your credit card balances below 50%, because they look at your overall debt, and the higher your debt and the higher percentage of credit you're using, that will actually affect your score negatively. So, it's 30% of your score. Credit history accounts for 15% of your score. Basically just the amount of time that you've had available credit open to you. So again, if you're brand new, trying to just establish credit, your credit history doesn't go back very far, so that 15% isn't really going to help you too well. So that's just going to grow over time. And then the final 2 things that affect your credit score at 10% each is when you establish new credit and a combination of credit mix. Credit mix refers to the different types of credit you have, such as credit cards, car payments, mortgages, etc. So all of those things account for 10% of your score. So again, keep in mind that it's not just one thing that affects your score, it's multiple things, but be aware of the things that affect your score the most. Now, you want to avoid these particular behaviors. One of the things that I've seen people do, and actually I was guilty of it in the past too when I was young, is you don't want to use one credit card to pay another credit card's balance or monthly fee, okay? Credit bureaus will see that you're paying between the 2 cards, and that will actually affect you in a negative way. And don't open too many lines of credit at once, okay? That can be seen as negative behavior. Credit bureaus will look at it like, all right, he's trying to establish or she's trying to establish all these credit lines for something. Do it slowly over time. Maybe you open up one credit card today, and then you open up another one maybe in 6 months or a year if you need to. But don't open too many at once. Like some people, especially when I was young in college, I was opening up store cards left and right because they offer you those 10% discounts or promotional campaigns where, hey, if you open up a card today, you'll save some money on your purchase, and then you're opening up all these credit lines at once. So be aware of that. Well, guys, that's it. I hope you guys learned some valuable information today. Again, if there's something that I missed in this video, feel free to throw it down in the comments. If there are any other topics that you want me to talk about in future videos, please let me know. Comment down below. I'll see you guys in the next video.